All right, beautiful people of Spurs Nation, welcome back to Views from Above, the rest of the NBA crowd as we're levitating above every other franchise in the NBA because these are views from the rafters. I'm your boy Swisheel. We got Clan the Spurs fan and Impeccabull J with us. Gentlemen, how y'all doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, I'm doing real good.
Man, that was synchronized. That was
I
awesome.
know. I was thinking, like, oh.
Yeah, I didn't do anything all day, but I went to the gym and I feel rejuvenated. I got a little bit of burst of energy, which I need to do that earlier.
So you can't say I didn't do anything all day, but I went to the gym. My thing is I didn't do anything all day because my fat ass sat in this chair and worked and then went downstairs and ate dinner.
That's doing something.
Yeah, that's doing something.
I barbecued today. I did barbecue.
So you did a ton then.
A little bit. Barbecue.
Impeccabull probably saved 6 people from a burning building and
not
rescued an old lady's cat from down the street.
Impeccabull, do you have cornrows?
Yeah, but they're messy right now. I gotta go. I have to fix them tomorrow.
Man, I haven't had cornrows in a long time.
God, man, me neither. It's been 28 years.
But yeah, so I haven't had cornrows in
Marginalize the white guy. No, that's too topical. I can't say that's too political. But anyway, cat's out of the bag now. The big news this week: pick number 9. Initial thoughts on that? Because I'll say this. I was really hoping, maybe something happens and we get the first pick. Fuck that rehearsal picture that they showed where we won the lottery in the rehearsal. That's unnecessary. Y'all don't need to do that to us, NBA. But pick 9, it's going to be a good pick. How are y'all feeling about that?
So with the rehearsal, do they just put it all through the generator or something and then come up with it and then it's okay, now it's time? Because that just seems kind of unfair. Shouldn't it just be the first time you do it?
See, that's what I thought. I'm like, you test the machine before the lottery day. There's no need to run the whole. What are you gonna have the guy practice saying the team names? It's like a 10-second presentation.
Yeah, because if it's right before the draft, then it's 100% chance basically we're not gonna get it. What's the odds of that happening again?
Yeah, repeat odds.
It drastically lowers the percentages.
Yeah. How do you feel about it, Impeccabull, that night?
Calling me surprised. 9th pick. Yay. I mean, we went out to end the season. We were at the 7th pick for what felt like 2 months. And then we went out. Even when DJ went out, we went out to end the season. And when we ended up at 9, I was kind of okay, well, it's not as good as the 7th pick. At the same time, I don't really see the difference between the 9th and 7th pick. Maybe if there's a specific guy you're looking at, maybe. At the 9th pick, it's kind of a peculiar spot because you're not at the 14th pick where you're ever looking for anybody who just slips. You have a pick of a guy that you would want. So it's not the worst case scenario, but it's at this point we've kind of expected we're going to be at the 9th pick. I don't think it's a bad pick. We'll prefer the higher one. But I think with us having the 9th pick, the 20th pick, and the 25th pick, we have a lot of ability to move if we really want to.
Yeah, and 9th pick was kind of what everyone was expecting anyway. I mean, everybody was kind of expecting that. Me personally, I'm not too beat up about it, kind of because what you said, we do technically have enough to move up, especially with the Houston Rockets basically being open, their GM being open now, that they're willing to trade that pick. So, we can move up. Now, as far as, moving up that far, I don't know. But even if we don't, I'm personally content with it. I think there's some really good talent, and it's inevitable for some of those guys that we expect to be top 5 to land around our spot anyway. So I'm not too beat up about it.
I mean, I wasn't pissed with the pick. I fully expected pick 9. I'd say I was getting my hopes up. I knew it was probably going to be pick 9, and I mean, even our last podcast, we're talking about guys we want at 9 who we think would be really good for the team. I know Clan has like his favorite guy who he's definitely going to bring up later because we've been arguing about him. We've been arguing as a baseball fan from like 2001. It's so weird to see the name Kenny Lofton associated with basketball for me. But I'll tell you, I was pissed off on the lottery night, but mostly because of the reaction. And that's because I saw so many people who were flaming me for saying, "Oh, let's tank and get a higher pick." Furious that we got pick 9 and didn't get higher. And I was like, this is what we were saying here. And on top of that, I was furious because they were the same people who said it was vital to get guys like Keldon and Devin and Primo experience and Jakob. And now they're out there throwing out all these trade scenarios that gets rid of all those guys to move up. And, and it's not that I don't think, hey, it might not be a good idea, or might be a good idea to trade a couple guys and move up. I'd be for it, but what was the point of getting them experience if you weren't going to use them? God. Is the thing. That's my whole thing, is I felt like there was this contradictory reaction to the whole thing. And I had to get off Twitter for a bit because I was like, this is just making me mad. Y'all wanted it this way. It happened, and like I didn't want it that way, and I'm content. Why can't you be content? You reap what you sow, and we did, and we got to live with it. And I find it funny that I think people convincing others that this is going to be all right. We can do this with the 9th pick, or the ones who were trying to tank anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you. What you saying, Beck?
No, it's weird. One pundit I was reading the article by Kevin O'Connor. He was talking about how the Spurs kind of got the best of both worlds. They got to get valuable experience by even getting into the play-in game. They won out. They fought hard to end their season, and they still end up with the 9th pick. When it comes to fans complaining about getting the 9th pick, I don't get it, because it's like, what did you expect? If your team goes ahead and decides we're not gonna rest any of our guys, we're gonna bring DJ off of the verge of what he made sound like death. If he lost like 10 to 15 pounds, and he's not that heavy to begin with, and you bring him out of that sickness to come play for you to end the season, then what do you expect? And then you don't win the play-in games. So you end up with that 9th pick. It's not as good as the 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th, or the rest of 3 other picks. You can't act surprised I think the big thing is a lot of fans act like a pick is just a pick until it gets to the draft, and then becomes a player. All of a sudden, it becomes a player. And then they start thinking about, well, why can't we get these players? We always want these players. Why can't we get these players with our pick? You can't get it both ways. You have to understand that a pick from the very get-go of the season is a player in waiting. I think there's a disconnect for a lot of fans when we talk about how it would be in the bare interest of this team to lose. I'm not saying tank, but it would be in the bare interest of this team to lose and get more talent than to try to push something that isn't moving, And not to mention, like you said,
it kind of, in a way, is a little bit disrespectful to guys like DJ, who we're propping him up for hey, he came in here wanting to win. He was willing to risk injury at the end of the season for not even a guaranteed playoff spot. He came in and played after having a bad illness. He clearly was not well in that game. He looked ill in that game, poor guy. And I'm like, and we're propping that up. And then all of a sudden, we got people throwing that to the curb, mad about the pick. I'm like, you can't have it both ways. You've got to respect his effort there wholeheartedly if you're going to go with that style. And I feel like anything else is just disingenuous to what they did at the end of the season there and what they tried to do at the end. It's I don't know. Hindsight's 2020, as everybody says, but this is where we kept talking about like maybe let's look a little bit ahead, not just to this playoffs, but like to the playoffs 3 years from now. What do we need for there?
Experience is important, and I understood where people were coming from, where they're like, we just need the experience. It's gonna be so good for these guys to get the experience. But at the same time, we didn't even take the first step where that experience would even pay off. So it didn't make a lot of sense for people to even get too excited about the fact that the Spurs got some experience. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, people can think what they want, but Keldon Johnson, look, everyone on this roster, okay, maybe minus Primo in the future, in my opinion, but basically everyone on this roster is not good enough for this experience to even pay off at all. Play-in wasn't even a thing a couple seasons ago. Like, it wasn't a thing at all. And now people like praise it like this is some big thing that they get this type of experience. It means nothing. Like, experience pays off when you have a Ja Morant. The fact that he was able to make an extra step this season, but he has the talent to go with that experience. Same thing with Luka Doncic. He needed that experience, and now he's much better when it comes to the playoffs. So you need that experience, but you also need that talent. And I don't understand where people were so excited about this experience when we didn't even take the first step to get that superstar. If fans really do believe that what we got right now is good enough, then stop complaining about the draft pick.
Run it back. Let's get a new guy and add it.
Run it back.
And like, I disagree with that strategy, but I also like, if that's what people believe, I'm not gonna hate on people's opinion if they believe in this group that that's what they have. But it's the contradiction of saying that we believe in what we have and then immediately being dissatisfied and saying, well, this isn't good enough, it's not going to help us at all. I'm like, well, if you need more help than that, maybe the group isn't as good as you're saying. It's just we got to be consistent with it.
I'll be meaner. I will fault them. If that's what you believe, if you think that this team is good enough to go far in the playoffs and all it takes is a little bit of experience, and you believe Keldon Johnson is a superstar and you believe that Devin Vassell is a superstar. If you believe this, if you really do believe that this is a star-filled team, then you're just wrong. Like, you can have your opinion, but your opinion's just wrong. Like, you're just wrong. I don't know.
And I think here's something that's I think fans need to understand, and not to hate on fans, because I mean they're fans. They're gonna have fan opinions, but
exactly,
not all experience is good experience.
No.
I think that's what they're missing out on. Not all good experience is good experience. Some experience is bad and detrimental to a team's mentality. Some experience hurts a player more than it helps a player. For these guys to get to the play-in for what is the second year in a row, I want to say, because they didn't qualify for it in the bubble. But for the second year in a row, they get into the play-in and they lose. And then you look at the fact that they didn't make it in the bubble. And you look at the last few years for a lot of the guys on this roster of coming up close, coming up short to get into the playoffs, which is the end goal for any winning or semi-winning franchise. And then you say, well, they need the experience. The experience to do what? The experience for what? What is that experience supposed to do for
What did you learn in that play-in game? Like, what helped you in that play-in game?
Well, and that's the thing. It's like jobs in real life. Like, if you go to a job, I mean, I'm in sales. I work in sales. If you go to a job and you're there for a couple years, the boss is horrible, treats you like shit. The product you're selling isn't good. You can't make any sales. You don't make a lot of money. And like, you're continuously dealing with this thing. Yeah, it's sales experience, but can you really say it was that valuable? You're going to want to get out of there. And yes, you may learn some things from it, but I've had that with jobs. And what I learned is not to settle for that and to go for a job that's better and does things for me. And that's what I worry is, I mean, heck, we even talked about it yesterday, Clan, that after that game, Lonnie was liking all these tweets about minutes and kind of throwing shade in his press conference. He's clearly kind of checked out from the franchise. Yeah. Stuff like that, lots of heads hung and everything like that. And it's just...
Bro, Keldon Johnson played 40 minutes and he went 6 for 20 he went 0 for 5 at 3. He had 15 points. DeJounte Murray played 34 minutes, went 5 for 19, 1 for 5 from 3. What did they learn? Like Devin Vassell, he went 7 for 15, but really 7 for 13 from 3 on catch and shoot shots. And then on top of that, the Pelicans shot 54%. Like, what did you learn from this? Brandon Ingram went 11 for 19. Did we learn to play better defense on Brandon Ingram next time? Like, you didn't learn anything. We're just not good enough.
I think something was learned. I think there was something learned. For DJ, I think he learned that even though Devin had a decent shooting night that night, I think he learned that there's nobody else on the roster he can really lean on if he has
exactly.
That's what he realized, is that if he isn't the engine for the offense, nothing's going to work. Nothing's going to work.
I don't think you think he just now. I think
that game solidified it. I think that was solidified.
Think like, about it. Every other game, he had at least some kind of, backup performance from somebody when he was at, like, I say full strength, meaning he was healthy. But sometimes he'd have off nights, but like even when he's fully healthy, he's able to draw a defense enough that Jakob would have a decent night. But when DJ is at his lowest and unable to produce consistently like that game, the whole team suffered.
But the team won. I mean, I know it was like poor games, obviously, but like the team won and they went on some type of stretch at the end of the season when DJ wasn't there. I mean, in every game that he's performed, he's had somebody who played well. But even in this game, he had Devin Vassell play well, and Jakob Poeltl played well.
Yeah, but look at those teams we were playing down this. We played like the Rockets without DJ.
But Jakob went 7 for 10.
Jakob went 7 for 10. But is Jakob going to win you games?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Even though Jakob went 7 for 10, I hold in the same estimation of Keldon going for 6 for 20. I remember watching that game. I remember that Keldon's 6 for 20 is one of the worst 6 for 20s I've personally seen. They weren't efficient buckets. They weren't effective buckets. They didn't really do anything for winning that game.
To be fair with Keldon Johnson's shooting, I mean, we kind of saw that coming anyway, the way that he shoots anyway. Like, we kind of saw that coming anyway.
I mean, the writing's on the wall for that, but at the same time, I think for him, he part of what he realized, and part of why I think he'll probably be politicking during the offseason just a bit for us to make a move in free agency or even in the draft, is because he understands that that's what, even if you're asking him to be a top option on your team, not even the number one option, even if you're asking him to be the top option on your team, he needs help of some type. On offense and defense. It can't just be him the only one putting in effort on both sides.
Go
ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying. So, what utility does it do for the team now that DJ knows that he can't rely on anybody?
I was gonna say that it's. I think there's experience for three groups of people. I say there's DJ. I say there's the rest of the team. And I say there's management that get experience out of this. DJ has that.
Definitely management. Yeah.
The rest of the roster realizes that if DJ isn't doing what he is capable of doing, which one of us is going to step up? What they've learned is in that situation is Devin had a good night, but Devin doesn't do that consistently, and Devin doesn't step out that comfort zone very often.
Put it this way, like DJ averaged near a triple-double this season and put up quite a few triple-doubles. I mean, he's the franchise leader in them now. And we lost a ton of games with him doing that. Essentially, what we're seeing here is that a DJ is not putting up those numbers, those 21, 8, 9, and 2 a night. We hardly even compete. I mean, he picked it up a little in the second half, and that was all just pain and effort thrown in there to create some shots for Vassell. But, people focus on the numbers. Yeah, DJ had 16, 5, and 6. 16, 9, and 5 that game. And yeah, some other people had a couple points, but you look at those percentages too, just nobody could get anything going offensively. And the defense looked lost too because they, were down a leader. And that's the thing is DJ has to be at that tip-top capacity just for us to be able to even get close to having a close loss. I mean, we were down like 25 at one point in that game when DJ was struggling at the beginning, and like that was the big takeaway for me. Is like that man needs help, but I don't know. I don't think we've got enough help for him currently.
Okay, I think I understand. So what you guys are saying, that basically, like saying it without saying it, that the Spurs were humble, that DeJounte Murray realized it was like a real check for the entire team. That okay, you know, all this talk, you know, preseason that we're about to tear it up, we're about to destroy the league. You kind of realize that you're probably gonna have to take a back seat to somebody that's better.
Well, and that's the thing is when it comes to specifically when it comes to DJ is my question with DJ isn't will or won't he show up. I believe that if he is healthy and he's at full capacity, he's not gonna mentally check out of a game. He's not gonna mentally check out of his team. He's gonna give his 100%.
Yeah.
The better question I think is, should he have to? Should it have to be DJ specifically that has to be the one to show up and try his best and try his hardest to help the team to win? Should he have to be the one to do that? Should he have to be the only person to really be to that? And I think it's unfair to say yes. He's the only person he's the person that we should be depending on to win us these games. He's the person that we should, and that kind of relates to management, or relates to management. Hey, you have to make moves. You can't just remain stagnant at the trade deadline, or you can't remain stagnant in free agency. You can't remain stagnant in the draft. You actually have to look at who, not just a project player or not just a prospect. You have to look at a guy who you feel as though is going to lead you in the right direction.
Exactly. And like that's the thing I'll point to again with the box score. Like DJ's performance was not awful in that game. Yeah, his field goal percentage was a little low as he was trying to, get into, obviously shake off the funk he was dealing with and get back into the game. But towards the end, he started to feel it a little bit. And normally, if your point guard puts up 16 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and a block, you should be in a pretty good place. I mean, look at the Bucks. We were talking about Drew Holiday the other day. He puts up that kind of numbers for the Bucks, and it's great. If Lonzo puts those numbers up for the Bulls, that's fantastic. If Kyle Lowry's doing that for the Heat, that's big time. But DJ puts those up, great numbers, and it's still not enough. And that's because so much is predicated on him. Literally, the entire team is on his shoulders. We saw in that game, Keldon cannot really create for himself. We saw him just drive in and chuck the ball at the basket multiple times. It was only when DJ was in the game that he looked half himself. Devin could not really create for himself. It was only when DJ was in the game and he's helping to move the ball around the perimeter that he's getting looks. Same with Jakob, getting looks off the pick and roll and the ball movement. And when DJ came out of that game, we looked like garbage. And that's where I think it's a management learning thing too, is I love this group. I love these players, but we've got to get more guys so that it's not so contingent on DJ, because I love DJ, but I don't think he's the level of player like a guy like Giannis or LeBron to where everything can hinge on him.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy you pair with that. And I think most people would agree, but the way it's structured currently, it's just not going to work.
Well, I was going to point out that a lot of people that say like lottery picks don't matter and the Spurs can find somebody late in the first round and all those talks, especially around the play-in time where we got a lot of heat for it. I want to say, just pointing out that the lottery picks were the ones that stepped up that game. I mean, because Jakob Poeltl's what, a 12th or
pick 9? He's a pick 9.
Pick 9.
Yeah,
he's a pick 9. He stepped up. Devin Vassell, he was 11. He stepped up. I don't even know what Josh Richardson is. He played okay.
He was a second round pick.
Second round, yeah. I didn't even
know. Sleeper second round pick too at that.
But I was gonna say this, Harrison. I don't mean to like what you were saying or anything. But when you said that he started getting it going, he did not get it going in the fourth quarter. Like he was terrible in the fourth quarter.
Well, comparatively to his first half. He actually hit some shots in the.
He hit 2 free throws, and then he hit a 3 with 20 seconds left. But other than that, he missed like a bunch of layups. But then again, to your point, DeJounte Murray, his assists, like he is the point guard. He shouldn't have to have that load on him. And to his credit, he did get people involved. Like it was a Devin Vassell 3 here. He got Jakob Poeltl a layup, an easy layup. He got Devin Vassell another 3. It was just him personally. He missed some jump shots. He missed some layups. He literally had 2 points, or 5 points technically, in the fourth quarter. But he was god awful. But then again, it's to me personally, I don't think it all should be on DJ anyway. I don't think that he's to that talent level. And I felt like a guy like CJ McCollum and a guy like Ingram are just better scorers, and they really showed out against us.
Yeah, I mean Valanciunas too. I mean Valanciunas was one of the top picks in his draft. I mean, and that was the thing. You had McCollum, who was, I believe, top 10 in his draft. You had Ingram, top 2 in his draft, and I think Valanciunas was like a number 4 overall pick. I mean, it showed. And then they're looking to add Zion back to that. He's a number 1 overall pick, and then they've got the 8th pick in this draft. I'm like, geez, they're stacking up. But to transition this a bit, we're talking about how what we have isn't enough. And how we think there's talented players at the 9th pick that we could use. But given the current situation, do you think the Spurs should exhaust all avenues to move up in this draft? Or do you think they should sit back and be fine with, pick 9, 20, and 25?
How you feeling, Jack?
The great movement debates.
The great migration.
So you know my opinion on this. I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. Exhaust all options. If it's, and maybe even if it includes DJ to a certain extent, even though I'm not really the strongest proponent of moving him. But if it means that you're getting a guy who you actually bring in and you interview and you watch him play and you watch him move and you think this can be a franchise player. This can be a guy that you build a team around. If you're convinced 100% in your heart that guy can be that, and you're saying that Primo can develop, another guy that you draft can develop next to this guy who you view as your best player. If you see that in this draft, if you see that in any of the prospects up in the top 4, well then, I think that you should go ahead and move up in the draft and select that player and do what it takes to get that guy. Because if you look at if you look conversely, let's say that you get a guy who is a good quality piece to an overall roster at 9. A guy who is a project player, but he comes in this first year, he does a good job, and he ends up decently ranked in the rookie race for Rookie of the Year. But then you see a guy that you were convinced was going to be a top dog in this league, and he's at the top of the ladder in the rookie race. And then the projection of the careers goes, this guy that you drafted, he's a good guy. He's a good role player. He's an 18-point per game scorer. He does a lot of good things for your team, but he's not who that guy who you knew was going to be a bona fide star in this league. Carry his team to Western Conference Finals. Carry his team to playoff positioning. And you see that guy succeeding where he could have been succeeding on your team. And you say the only reason why you didn't want to move him is because you didn't want to give up some other pieces that you liked on your team that leave you where. I mean, us losing to the Pelicans was on should honestly be a wake-up call for management to say competition is only going to get stiffer. Opposition is only going to get stronger. You have to do the things to combat that. You can't just play it safe 100% of the time and think, man, maybe we get lucky and draft another Kawhi at a later lottery pick. Maybe we get a guy who can change our franchise at 9. Not saying that you can't, but saying that you increase the likelihood of doing that with the higher pick that you possess.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I've made it known from the beginning. I am team exhaust every avenue to move up. I mean, we've already seen that apparently Oklahoma. I mean, it's Sam Presti. Sam Presti's always willing to deal for more picks. He loves his picks, and we've seen Raphael Stone, the Houston GM, say that he's willing to deal that pick 3. And then we've seen Sacramento, who ended up with pick 4, who they don't need a power forward or a big, and they don't need a point guard, which are essentially what the top 4 picks are. So we've heard that they may be looking to move down a little bit since they're trying to win now. And to me, if I'm the Spurs, people are going to hate me for saying this, but I don't think there's anyone, and granted, this is contingent on your direction. If your direction is, look, we've gotten this far, let's tear it down and start over, sure, you can trade DeJounte, but I'd rather not. I think right now I'm all in on trying to get one of those top 2-3 picks, whatever it takes, because I'm that confident that one of those, Smith or Banchero, is going to be the guy. A lot higher on Banchero than Smith, but I think that could be the guy that jumpstarts your franchise. He's your go-to guy going forward. He's a great fit with DJ. And then I think you're looking at having, the separate problem that we had last year. We had all role players and no stars. Well, now you've got your franchise guy, and you've got a bunch of money in free agency to build with him and get guys next to him. And that's where I also just look at, we had this conversation the other day that if DJ is our guy and we want to win a title with him as our point guard, I mean, he's hitting his prime this year. He's turning like 27. I mean, and he's right in the middle of it. He has a few years of his prime here that we've got to maximize his potential. And if we want to use him as like our secondary option or our tertiary option, now's the time to start trying that. Like, we've got to figure out how we can get these guys to put next to him to make a run like that. And I just don't know that anyone at pick 9 is going to do that. And then if you add in picks 20 and 25, you're looking at possibly 3 18 or 19-year-olds joining this team who aren't going to be at their peak for another 3 or 4 years. And then you're looking at a 31-year-old DJ. It's just a rough situation. So I'd rather get a guy we know is going to produce now, who can help DJ out some.
I just feel like this is a very long-term thing. So me personally, I'm completely with you guys as far as getting rid of everything to move up, or I'm cool with just dealing with the consequences of us not tanking and taking that 9th and taking that 20th and 25th because it's such a deep draft. Either way, I'm pretty content with, but honestly, if that's really our mentality, if we're thinking about DeJounte Murray and his well-being, I just don't think that is necessarily helpful for him, or he's going to be in a situation where he can win, even if we got Banchero, even if we got Ayton and Levine, like we got those 2 guys. I don't see it going to a direction where we go deep into the playoffs. I still think see this team kind of struggling to get in the playoffs or struggling to make something happen. And I don't think that's me being pessimistic. I think it's just the overall situation you would see yourself in. You would see Zach LaVine come into a different situation in which he would have to be the guy. He's going to have to implement himself into the system. That's going to take a couple seasons. And then you got Ayton, who his entire career has been kind of, in my opinion, tarnished by the Phoenix Suns and how they utilized him, to the point where he's going to have to find his game. He's going to have to find his fit. And at the end of the day, I've seen DeJounte Murray with 2 All-Stars, and it just doesn't work. At the end of the day, he's going to have some type of role where he just dumps it off to them and they do their thing. And I just don't see this team coming together and being able to make this huge run that will really maximize DeJounte Murray's abilities. I don't see it happening. The best possible scenario I can see is the Spurs actually not riding the fence and just tank this thing out. And I don't mean like purposefully lose, just like you guys said, get rid of your players and move up, or deal with the consequences and possibly move DeJounte to a championship caliber team. But even with that, DJ, when is his contract over?
He's got like 2 more years, I think.
Yeah, I think it's 2 more years.
Okay. I mean, you could keep DeJounte, and then he'll get a pretty nice contract somewhere else if that's what you want to do. I don't know. It's just the fact that, like you said, he's going on. You said going on 27.
I think 26.
It's either 26 or 27. It's hard to tell because Google throws his age out there, and I'm like, crap, did he just turn 26, or has he been 26 for 9 months already?
Yeah. Oh no, it looks like he's going to be 26. He's going to turn 26. So he's still fairly young, like, you know, mid-20s, like you said, going into his prime. I just don't see a scenario where the Spurs are back on top in a couple seasons. I just don't see it. I don't think that DeJounte Murray, as it stands right now, unless he's like long-term with Spurs and, you know, a few years down the line, he's still with us. I don't see him in his prime right now winning the championship. But that's just me. And I'm sure that that's not what you meant as far as like that being the end goal. You just want him to be like somewhat successful, right?
Well, we talked about this the other day. I keep saying we talked about this the other day. We're always chatting about this kind of shit. And that was where I was saying I'm fine with either direction. If, you know, we go all in, get aggressive, go out and get some big names to bring next to DeJounte, exhaust all avenues to get a team around him to build a winner. Or if we decide there's just no possible way we can get any of these names or draft anybody that's going to like be a big impact, you know, tear it down and start over. But pick a direction. I'm just kind of sick of riding on the fence, and I really don't want, you know, it to be another season. I'd hate this for DeJounte if it were like 2 more seasons of just finishing 9th or 10th and oh yeah, play in and all that. And yeah, we get a late lottery pick for another role player for him, but it just keeps on going the same. Cause that's, I know people will say, oh, well, we just lost DeMar DeRozan, but we've been kind of on this same trajectory the last few years. And I think we're hitting that snag where, I mean, DeJounte came in and he was putting up DeRozan like numbers in San Antonio and all that. And we had Keldon essentially putting up similar numbers to what DeJounte put up next to DeRozan, which, yeah, it's good. That's some improvement. But still, we did the same thing. And I think it's going to continue to be that same thing if we just keep adding, you know, role player and hoping to get lucky. So I can see either side, but I think we just need to pick one of the sides.
We're not going to be able to, and I think it'll be great if we can. Especially in this draft, if for some reason, and I know that, like, especially what you said, Impeccabull, like, we can't just rely on having a Kawhi Leonard in this draft. But, you know, if it happened, I think that you can technically, like, have your cake and eat it too, where you can go and get those free agents.
Well, listen,
be decent and still grow.
It'd be nice, but then again, I don't mind saying it. I'm fairly selfish. I would like to see this team go ahead and try to do something and capitalize on their roster right now. I mean,
go get the free agents.
Go get the free agents. Go get the draftee that you would want to draft. Go for it, whatever it is. I don't buy into non-purposeful tanking, if that makes any sense. Just tanking just to tank, just to see, okay, we get a high pick, let's take this guy. Okay, like what OKC is doing right now. What OKC is doing right now is they're tanking with no real end goal in sight. I don't know what their end goal is. They tank, they get draft picks, they get these guys, they sit their guys, they don't play their guys, they don't.
Yeah, exactly. They don't even send them to the G League.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like they're waiting on something. I just don't know what they're waiting on. I don't know if they're waiting for a guy that's going to be their miraculous savior, and then you're going to use all of the other draftees that you drafted that put around him, and all of a sudden you have a squad on our hands. But I don't believe in that, but I do believe in tanking with a purpose. I do believe in trading up in the draft with a purpose. If there's a guy in mind that you have that you want to put next to the guys that you already have, well, then that means something. I mean, and I think my big qualm with this entire situation is the management essentially asked DJ, do something this season. Let's see what you can do this season.
Yeah.
It's a tested season. They're testing if he's even worth his contract that they gave him a few years ago. And guess what? He went out there and he performed. Regardless of if you think he's the best player on, he's a top 50 player. Regardless if you think he's a top guard in the league. Regardless if you think he's an efficient player. Regardless of those things, he went out there and he put up numbers. That's one thing you can say. And if you say that there wasn't any talent on his team, somebody had to step up, and he was the one that did. He's the one that did put up those numbers.
How do you guys feel about? I know this kind of like a little random, but like, first off, the roster. If any Spurs fan looks at this roster, just look up the roster, and you just glance at this roster. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, you would say, "Oh my God, what is this?" Like, I think if you saw this roster on any other team, you would have a different perspective of it. We like love our guys so much to the point where we can see our team. We watch them all the time. We're like, DJ's an all-star. Keldon Johnson is a future all-star. It's like, no, if you just look at this roster objectively, any other person in the NBA, any other fan of their team will look at our roster and say, what is this? Even in the old teams where people were saying the Spurs are boring, I hate the Spurs, I don't want to watch them. They would sit there and say, Tim Duncan's the greatest power forward of all time. Manu Ginobili, that is a killer. I hate when we have to play him. Tony Parker, oh my goodness, the spin move.
They wanted those guys. Right now, the only guy we have other teams want is DeJounte.
Yeah.
And you can look that up on Twitter.
Yeah. NBA Twitter is very big. Very big.
But what I was going to ask you was, and I didn't know how I felt about it, okay? DeJounte Murray not making all NBA defense. Like, to me, that just came across as like other people or other fans, other teams, other GMs, other like just the league as a whole views DJ completely different than how Spurs fans view him. Or our team in general, like in general. But I didn't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely they're like, oh, they're the Spurs. They're a bad team. He's just performing well on a bad team. And I think that stigma follows. I think I think DJ's a good player. No, I don't think he's going to be a superstar. I think he's a good player, though. He's enough to be a second or third option on a contending team that wins a title. I do believe that. But, granted, I was a little annoyed that they put Thibault over him when DJ tops him in almost every advanced metric defensively and all that.
They don't do it by position.
But Thibault's a shooting guard.
Thibault's a shooting guard. Yeah, he plays two positions, so he gets double consideration there.
Oh, okay. Because I was just thinking Marcus Smart beat DJ, and I was like,
and that's the false equivalency you get there with Thibault was borderline unplayable for Philly in the playoffs because he was so bad offensively that they couldn't justify his defense on the court. And really, DeJounte has more win shares defensively than Thibault, which essentially means his defense impacts winning more than Thibault's does. And he was the lead leader in steals and deflections.
And just to inform y'all, DJ was third. I want to say he was third highest in votes amongst people who did make the all-defensive team.
Yeah.
I think a big proponent of why the voters didn't vote DJ in is quite simply, and I hate to put it like this.
Wait.
What?
Wait. Oh, wait. Hold on. Guys, I'm sorry. I thought he just didn't make first team. He didn't make it at all?
No, he didn't make a team at all.
No.
Oh, no, that's kind of sussy. That's kind of sussy-wussy.
That's why I was saying I think they're writing off players unnecessarily.
Oh yeah, no.
And that's what I was gonna say. I think the big reason why they left him off completely is they don't respect no Spurs. They don't respect what he's doing. What DJ's doing right now to a lot of league members is gonna be called EC or empty calories. As in, he's putting up stats. Yeah, he's playing good defense. You can see it on advanced stat sheet that he's playing good defense. He led the league in steals. That shows up. That's a pop number. But he's doing it next to who? With who? And I think that the lack of TV time even.
I think that's a big factor.
I think
they don't get to watch him.
Nobody sees him. Nobody sees him play this defense that he's known for all of a sudden.
Yeah, because no one, seeing here, no bad team made it. Every team was like in the playoffs.
Well, and like the biggest game people saw him play in was the one he came back from his sickness against the Pelicans. That was on national TV. So they saw his worst performance probably all season there, and that rings out. But yeah, I thought it was ridiculous he didn't make a defensive team. I can't think of 5 guards who are better defenders than DeJounte night in and night out this season.
Who votes? But, Van Fleet got more votes than DJ.
Yeah. I mean, it's like writers, coaches, people like that. It's the same people that vote for like the MVP and everything. But
any players?
I don't think players. I think players have a minor vote in some things, but it doesn't count nearly as much as like the press and stuff.
And I think and this kind of goes to something else, but I think that the voters need to be held accountable for their votes. I think the voting system is a bit unfair.
Yeah,
because we don't know who's voting.
Bill Simmons placing a bet on Marcus Smart to win Defensive Player of the Year and then being able to vote for him for that's bullshit. Pete Rose got banned from baseball for doing a very similar thing.
Yes. Did you know that Marcus Smart received 99 out of 100 possible votes to be on the first team all defense? The one person that did not vote for him to be first team all defense didn't even vote for him at all.
Yeah.
Which is
didn't vote for the Defensive Player of the Year at all.
How do you not do that? That just shows that there's a lack of regulation when it comes to voting and the voters. It shows that it's somewhat, I don't want to say rigged. I don't want to use the rigged word, but I mean, it's suspect.
I'm looking on here though. I think we should give some kudos to DeJounte Murray anyway, because even if you look on here, anybody that was voted, every other team other than DeJounte was a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland was in the playoffs too.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, every single team. They were in the playoffs. He's the only one that was out of the playoffs that was on the list. So speaks volumes about how well he did.
Yeah, no, he should have made an all defensive team, I think. It's
easy. I thought he just didn't make first. I didn't know second team was already out. I didn't know.
Man, they had Chris Paul making all defensive teams automatically when he led the league in steals and all that. And he was never a better defender than DeJounte has been on the ball. Chris Paul's a pickpocket, but DeJounte can guard like 3 positions. He can contest shots. He's a pickpocket. He's a lane jumper. I mean, he's an all-around defender.
He's become a much better defender too. One thing I used to always criticize was like him biting often, but he doesn't.
I'll say this. I won't say like, he had a ton to improve because he was already a good defender, but his intangibles are better. He's not like chasing blocks and chasing steals all the time, and he still has the same impact on the court, which is great because then he's not gambling so much and he can impact the game offensively more by, saving that energy and still bringing that defense every night.
Yeah, but that's a snub though. Like he should at least make second.
I always say this: narratives make awards. I mean, DJ lost Most Improved Player of the Year, I think, because he didn't have a narrative behind it. He was on the Spurs as the only guy playing essentially by himself, putting up stats by himself, while John Morant played on a team that was a lot more talented than DJ's, and he put up near MVP numbers, especially scoring-wise, whilst his assists dipped. Statistically by quite a bit, and he became less efficient passing.
Not to mention his shooting guard improved at a better rate than he did. That's what I don't. I can understand saying no, John Morant shouldn't have got it, but like if anyone from the Grizzlies should have got it, it was Desmond Bane.
It was Desmond Bane, and
no question. Ja even acknowledged it. Hey, he gave him the freaking award. Jeez, man.
Whilst you look at DJ, who's improved statistically in just about every single category, in which he was already fairly good as a point guard, and doesn't get that. Okay. And then you look at the defensive team, leads the league in steals, per game as well, and doesn't even make a defensive team.
Yeah,
narratives make awards. He doesn't
that's
have a
the
narrative.
thing is he was second team all defense in his second season, correct?
Yeah, that's partially because
I'm
he had a narrative behind it.
Yeah, well, and that's also where I'm like, he was not a better defender that season than he is now. That's the annoying part of it. I'm like, come on, man.
Well, I mean, I guess it'll always be kind of subjective, but do you think these awards should be more objective, where it's like based on strict stats? Because I don't know how I feel about that, because then at that point, players would just look at other players and say, okay, you're averaging 30. I gotta put up 35.
Well, I think it needs to be consistently objective, because some of them are like, I know a lot of people got mad this year that Joel Embiid didn't win MVP, but like I was fine with Jokic, because if you looked at that Denver team and you took Jokic away, they were awful. I mean, he was missing his star point guard. He had a number of guys. I mean, he lost Michael Porter Jr. at the very beginning of the season, who was supposed to be this breakout candidate. Aaron Gordon had a down year. I mean, Will Barton's not playing as well as he was. They're having Monte Morris, a second-round pick, start at point guard for them, who is a good point guard. But, I mean, they had, what's his name, Campazzo coming in playing backup point guard minutes for them at points during the season. And we're adding Bryn Forbes because they were so desperate for shooting. But Jokic had them in the playoffs in the middle of the pack competing with the Warriors. I mean, that guy single-handedly dragged him there. I think that's where you look objective and say, geez, like, this team is nothing without him. Whereas, you know, if you take away Embiid from the Sixers with the team they had, that they could still get to the playoffs. I don't know, but I was fine with Jokic. But then you look at like Defensive Player of the Year. I think they finally wanted to award one of those point of attack guard defenders. Yeah, but I'm just like, yeah, I feel like they changed this specifically because this was an agenda. I don't know if Marcus Smart was necessarily the concrete best defender in the league. I felt like, dude, after Draymond Green's season, look what he's doing. I mean, Marcus Smart's been good in this playoff, but look what Draymond Green's been doing all season in the playoffs too. I think Draymond Green was easy best defender in the league this year.
I think if he didn't get hurt or injured,
yeah, that's what hurt his chances.
I think he probably would have had a good chance to get defensive player.
I'm trying to look up Marcus Smart defensive.
I thought it was either going to be Rudy Gobert, Draymond Green, or Marcus Smart for that award. I'm happy that Marcus Smart won it because Rudy and Draymond, even though Draymond's more on ball, Marcus Smart's the only like point of attack defender of those guys.
So when are these votes put in? That's a good question, I think.
Towards the end of the season.
Okay, so it's not like they did it like last week or anything.
Nah, they just have to have time to tally them up and everything.
Yeah, well,
okay, because that would be a little iffy.
Somebody could have you can put them in pretty close to the playoffs, pretty around that area.
Well, that could still kind of.
They have to get them in before. They have to get them in before the playoffs. They can put them in right before, but they don't do them during the playoffs. They don't take into account any kind of playoff play. Yeah, because I mean, you get guys like Jordan Poole dropping 30 a game in the first playoff series, and then you could easily say, "Wait, he's MIP," and really, there were other guys that were better than him all season that deserved it.
I was really hoping Ja wouldn't get in.
Yeah, I was too. I mean, I don't dislike Ja, but yeah, I just felt like there were better choices.
And it kind of feels as though the league is kind of ham-fistedly trying to make him the face or a face of the league.
Yeah.
It's a bit ham-fisted, it feels like.
Their Zion approach failed because he's been hurt so much, so they got to find somebody.
And
if he didn't get hurt.
Even once he comes back, I don't think they're going to push him as hard as they push him.
No. He kind of messed up his reputation a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
As far as being the face.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let me transition to this as our last topic, since we're coming full circle and we'll get back to the draft. Last year we took Josh Primo 12th.
Joshua.
I know Clan's gonna have some impassioned feelings about this question, but we heard a lot that he's giving that look to camera already. We heard a lot, and like I said, I didn't hate it, didn't love it. But a lot of the reasoning was, hey, this kid goes back to school. He's talented enough that he could probably be a top 5 pick in next year's draft. My question to you guys is, now that we're seeing what this draft has in it, do we think Josh Primo would have been a top 5 pick in this draft? And if not, where would he go?
I must go first on this. I don't want Clan to go ahead and take up 10 minutes telling us why Primo was the first overall pick.
You go first and I'll go last. That way we can sandwich his bias claim.
Exactly. Magnificent. I would say that Joshua Primo would have, if he had put up better percentages, been a lead ball handler, and been a good scoring guard, I think he would have probably been around the 6 to 10 range. I don't buy him as a top 5 pick in this draft. I think he would have been between the 6 to 10 range, which, even though you might not think of it as markedly better than where he got drafted last year, he wasn't projected to go in the lottery. He wasn't projected to even get drafted anywhere near there. So that's a comment saying that he showed quite a bit that is it validates the Spurs picking him as high as they did. Those flashes that he showed throughout the year, the talent that he showed throughout the year. But I don't think he really, and that's the thing with Joshua, is that he doesn't really do enough to really separate himself more than what he puts on a stat sheet. Like, you can look at his stats and say, man, this dude's having an impact. When you watch him play, besides certain nuances of his game and certain cadences he has throughout the game, nothing really screams out at you and says, that guy has it. Besides his smoothness, he's very smooth. And smoothness can be to a player's benefit as it can be to their detriment. Because when you play a very smooth, it's coming to me type of game, it can really make people feel as though maybe you're not as good as you are, especially when you put up paltry numbers. So it's not really a criticism of Joshua or saying that he's not as good as the top guys in the draft. But I think just based off his game and based off of how he kind of plays, I don't buy him as a top 5 draft pick in this draft.
I know you think that would be super biased, but like top 5, the way that Josh Primo is, like even this past season, and he was talking about, or no, he didn't say it during the season. I think it was before he got with the Spurs, but he was saying how he kind of decided to take that role of being more of a facilitator, and just being a catch and shoot. Well, not facilitator, being a catch and shoot player with Alabama, and he took that back seat. So it's really hard for me to fathom that he would have did it completely different this last season. I feel like even in college, he would have still, like, he would have saw those flashes, but I feel like he would have still kind of took that role, whatever the team needed, because he's a very big intangibles guy. For me, that's how I view him. So as far as would he be top 5, maybe, but if it was top 5, he would be 5, because like even if I'm looking at who's the top 5, like you got Chet, Jabari, Bencaro, Jaden Ivey, and then a lot of people are saying Shaedon Sharpe, Keegan Murray, AJ Griffin. I would say, yeah, possibly that 5th spot. But the other guys, I mean, they were basically the guys. And I don't know if, and it's no like knock on Josh Primo. I just know I don't know if he would be the guy. But I would say this, like when I saw him in the G League, he showed a lot. Now, it's a completely different role that they would have had him in college versus the G League. But in this year's G League, if we're just saying G League versus college and both really good talent, he's a young player. He showed his butt in the G League. Like he played his way out of the G League fairly quickly to get on the Spurs roster. So to me, I think he would have hit right at 5 because there's more than enough guys on this in this draft that you would look at the numbers and be like, they're okay, and you would have to actually watch them or actually look up breakdowns to figure out what type of player they are. And I feel like Josh Primo would have been that. He would have been the guy that kind of is willing to take that back seat. And I have no reason to believe he wouldn't have done that with Alabama because they still had a lot of older players on the team, right? Like a lot of seniors still.
A couple. I mean, they lost like Herb Jones. They lost. I mean, they lost John Petty. They lost their top three options. Yeah.
Guys. And then what? Was JD Davison on their team?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was a completely
freshman, right?
Freshman, playing the point guard.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's so hard to tell. I'll say this: if he came into what we saw in the G League and Alabama was like, "Oh yeah, we want you to kind of more so take over," I have no doubt that he will be in that top 5. It's just that his type of personality, he's so team friendly. I could very well see him taking a back seat and just letting the other guys get it.
Before you say anything, Harrison, I just want to say the reason why I say like 6 to 10 range is you look at a guy like Johnny Davis. And I would say that Josh Primo will have a very similar-esque season to like a Johnny Davis. Maybe not the same way that Johnny Davis likes to take mid-ranges, likes to drive to the rim, likes to seek contact on his way to the rim. That type of game, but statistically, that type of impact on the game as like the number one option on a team that doesn't really have any number one options besides just him. And if you look at where Johnny Davis is being projected, he could go like 8, but I mean, he's not going to go any close sooner than 8, mainly because people don't really know how good he is or what he's going to be or how he's supposed to fit. I think Primo would answer those questions a bit better because he is a more natural fit with other guys. But I think, that's the main qualifier for what I'm saying.
My thoughts on Josh Primo, I think he probably would have gone in the 8 to 13 range. Right now, we have the advantage of knowing he has a year of corporate knowledge under his belt, and I think that right there makes him a top 8 prospect immediately. But had he gone back to Alabama, I think 8 to 13. Mainly because I'm looking at other guards. I think Johnny Davis is going to draw a lot of people in with showcasing his abilities. I mean, Benedict Matherin's had a great season all around, and he's bigger than Primo is. Lots of these teams are looking at Keegan Murray making that huge jump. Primo in his year averaged like 8 points, 3 rebounds, an assist, and a steal. I think easily, looking at Alabama this year, they brought back Jordan Shackelford and Javon Quinterly, neither of them who, were really go-to options before. Shackelford was their leading scorer. I think Primo easily could have gotten his scoring up to like 15, maybe 16 points a game, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. I mean, assists are hard to come by in college, and all that. So, which I think is right on par with guys like Johnny Davis in terms of, usage and who he has as teammates next to him to where he doesn't have to do as much. And then his size and athleticism and how he performs in the combine would probably get him up there. But, one thing I did like about Primo in the G League, I believe Primo can become a really, really good player. Whether or not he does, I haven't seen. It remains to be seen. I haven't seen enough of him yet to concretely say, yes, it's going to happen. But I've seen a couple little things here and there that I'm like, like it has me looking. And one of them's his ball handle. He may already be the best handler on the team. And that's no knock to DeJounte, but just Primo's got the ball on a string. He's a natural ball handler. And that's one thing we didn't see when he was at Alabama, which I think was why he was projected so low. I mean, if Primo had been playing in Alabama like he did in our summer league, he automatically would have jumped from like spot 23 to maybe 15 in last year's draft, just based on his handling and reading ability on his own. The second is the space he creates with that dribble. I haven't seen him do it quite at the pro level yet. He hasn't been given an opportunity. He's mostly been a spot-up guy. So I would like to see it translate in an actual NBA game where he's given the opportunity to take some guys off the dribble and create his own shot. And then I'll start feeling better saying, okay, like this guy's got it. But in the G League, we've seen that ability, and not really anybody else on our team, save maybe Lonnie a couple times, had that ability this past season, and maybe DJ in the mid-range. But what he really has to work on is careless turnovers. He can over dribble at times. He might be making up for all the dribbling he didn't get to do at Alabama. And that's why we threw him in the G League, learning how to read defenses and run an offense, because he didn't do that at Alabama. He brought the ball up the court, passed the ball off to John Petty, Herb Jones, Jordan Shackelford, and then parked himself in the corner while they ran a play, and he'd get a couple touches. So it's just learning to look for his teammates, set his teammates up, and he got a bunch better at that towards the end of the G League season, which is why they pulled him up. I'd just like to see it happen at the pro level against that big competition and see him start to put it together there before I declare, like, yes, I firmly know he's going to be that guy.
Can you tell me one flaw?
One flaw with Primo?
Yeah, one flaw.
Yeah,
I'd turn over sometimes, like he over dribbles.
Yeah, I mean, there's times, and this is a big thing with young guards. It happens a lot. Lonzo Ball did it. LaMelo Ball's done it. DJ did it when he first started as a guard. Tony Parker did it. Sometimes you don't have to sit up there and be James Harden, dribbling through your legs all the time and trying to catch people off guard. The whole thing with dribbling is going somewhere with the ball. And if you're giving a player a change of direction, you've got to give it to him for a reason, not just to look fancy dribbling. And a lot of times he'll sit up there at the top of the key and he's dribbling around and, he's not doing anything. The defender's not moving. He's not moving. And sometimes all it takes is like one small crossover and you can get to a spot and run a play. And I think it's just looking for that situation in there. You look at DJ, we don't ever see him do a ton of... He's not Kyrie Irving with the ball, but he does exactly enough, and that's why I love Impeccable's Chauncey Billups comparison for him. Chauncey Billups was never super fancy as a point guard. He just did what he needed to do to get the job done, and that's all you need sometimes. You don't need to, double cross a guy on a screen. Sometimes just wait for the screen to get there and then use it. And he kind of simplified his game a little bit towards the end of the season in the G League, which helped him a lot. You saw his efficiency go up. We saw his turnovers come down. And that's what I'd like to see a little bit more of this coming season.
I literally don't have a flaw with Josh.
I do have one flaw myself.
Okay, go ahead.
And that is, and I just don't know when we're going to see that from him. A lack of aggressiveness offensively. He is not a guy to force things. That is not his MO. He's going to play within the flow of the offense. He's going to go for the right shot. He's going to play off ball fairly well. He's going to do a lot of the right things. However, when you are a scoring guard like he is, I'm not going to call him something else because he's not going to be your 14 and 10 type of guy.
Yeah.
Whereas he's like scoring 14 points per game, and he's a floor general, and he's passing the ball a ton. He's more of a Darren Williams, as in he is a more heliocentric type of guard. He's going to be taking shots. He's going to have times in which he will be able to ISO or play off ball, in which the ball is going to come to him. You just don't know when. That is his type of game. And even when it goes to like driving towards the basket, he only averaged a free throw a game when he did get PT. One of the early indicators for how many points a guy is going to be scoring in the league is for how many free throws do they attempt. And that's the easiest basket that you can get in the game. It's a free throw attempt. So when I don't see him really force the issue, he's not really driving to the basket with reckless abandon, which isn't a bad thing. But at the same time, there's certain times in which you could tell he would just kind of settle for a jump shot. Or he would settle.
He loves his step back.
He loves that step back.
And he's good at it.
And I'm not saying it's a bad shot for him. He probably will develop it into a good shot eventually. But at the same time, sometimes it's driving to the basket and forcing them to either foul you or clear a lane for you so that you can get an easy basket. It's just as good as getting that step back off. And I think he kind of settled for it. I think he's so confident in his jump shot that he will settle for it. and that's a bad habit to build up at this point in your career.
I think this is what I think. I think
Here,
that's the same.
let me interrupt for one thing, just so it'll transition to yours. I'm cautiously optimistic, and I know it's stupid, but because of one play he had in the last 2 games of the season, I can't remember who it was, but he caught the ball in the corner. He hesied in and out, then crossed, took the guy baseline, and then had that nasty reverse jam and got fouled.
Kobe.
And he was pumped too. And I was okay, there's some dog. Let's go. But like you said, we didn't see that a whole lot. I'd love to see him look to attack those guys who are late arriving to him instead of waiting for him to get there and then making your move. You're absolutely right. He could have those guys off balance a lot more than he does if he just make the decision quicker and commit to those drives.
Okay. This season wasn't for Josh Primo. To me, this entire season has been, we're trying to figure out what Lonnie Walker can be. Josh Primo, you go develop in the G League. We'll send you back. You go back there. You come back. It wasn't necessarily for him.
This season was for Joe Wieskamp.
it was Joe Weezy. But it wasn't for Josh Primo. I think Josh Primo was just kind of okay, we know you're young, you're just gonna develop, come back, you're gonna learn, go back there. And even DeJounte Murray talked about that, how tough that is for a player. So he's still coming into his own. So I'm not gonna sit here and criticize him for anything and say, oh, he does too much of this, oh, he does too much of that. Because right now, the Spurs are trying to figure out, okay, where do we kind of want you? Because they sent him off to the G League to be more of a facilitator. He came back to the Spurs and they wanted him to be a catch and shoot because DeJounte Murray was the main guy. And then as the season went on, near the end of the season more so, Josh Primo came more into his own, and you saw those moments where he did gel with the guys, and he did have those plays where you said, oh my goodness, and he did have those situations where he would, like you said, the hezzy, the crossover, the amazing dunk. He had a lot of these moments, and I don't think that it's the same as Lonnie Walker, where Lonnie Walker just has these lapses. Josh Primo, to me, I just think that he's young. The only thing he's missing is just experience and coming into his own as far as what they want him to be. But if I'm talking about raw ability and who he is as a person, I have full confidence that Josh Primo can be a star. I have full confidence in it, because when I look at him, I see a guy who facilitates for his teammates when he can. I see a guy who has ball handling ability. I see a guy who can shoot. I see a guy who has sneaky athleticism. I see a guy who plays good defense. And not only that, it was so many times in the fourth quarter, especially near the end of the fourth quarter, where I saw Josh Primo doing some phenomenal things in clutch situations. I've seen him hit a 3 in a clutch situation. I've seen him get a big time block in a clutch situation. I've seen him have some really good defensive stops. I've seen him communicate with his teammates to a degree that I'm not expecting an 18-year-old to be able to do. So every single thing about him speaks towards star. I don't know. Right. I understand what you're saying. I understand that you see a guy who is he shoots too often, and sometimes he needs to work on his step. I don't care. He's good. He's okay.
Here's the thing. Everything you just said, you could also apply to a guy like
you can't.
No,
you can't.
I got a better one for you. You
can apply to who?
He's describing? Who? Manu Ginobili.
Manu Ginobili was a star. What you mean?
No, but that's who you're describing.
Yeah. That's a good. Who else?
Yes, he has the tools.
I can't say it about Keldon. I didn't say it about Keldon rookie season. I didn't say it about Lonnie rookie season.
No, you can't.
What do you mean?
No, he said he didn't say it about.
No, I didn't. I didn't say it about them.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, no, you didn't. And that's because as a rookie, I do think Primo's a better rookie than those guys. I think he fits better, but that's more so because he's a scoring guard that, one, isn't afraid of contact, and two, technically speaking, both of them are shooting guards when they were coming into the league. But he has a defined game that he learned from college. His
IQ, I'm just seeing it. His IQ is so high, and for him to be able to go,
Listen, Professor X,
beating up my data.
For him to be able to go to the G League and they tell him do a completely different thing than what you're used to, and then not take too long for him to thrive in that role. And then he goes to the Spurs and they're like, okay, we just need you to be a catch and shoot. Can you just do that? And then he does pretty well there. It's like, okay, well, we want you to ball handle a little bit. And he had a few, mishaps here and there. But overwhelmingly, I mean, as far as we're talking about, he turns the ball over too much. He played like 19 minutes per game. He turns the ball over one time, like one time a game. Like it wasn't that big. Like he's turning the ball over just as much as anybody else on the team.
He's turnover prone.
With one turnover a game.
He averaged 3.6 turnovers a game in Austin.
That's Austin. What you mean? Oh, I thought we were talking about the NBA.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about like with his increased role in Austin. That's where I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he did a solid job in the NBA. I think a lot of the problem with his NBA season this year is Popovich wanted to use him one way, and Brian Wright has an idea of how he's going to be used in a different way. And we saw that. Pop even said that. He was like, I'd be in favor of taking a win now approach and getting him in here as a spot up shooter because we need that. But, it's in his best interest. He didn't say our best interest, in his best interest as a player for him to go to the G League. And he said, we've discussed that with him and he agrees. And so that's where we're going. So like, it seems like he wants to be more than just a spot up shooter. And that's a lot of where they said, okay, then let's get you these reps and let's do that. But I mean, that's it. I love Primo. I don't know if I'm ready to make a declaration after a year.
If you had to put money, okay, like you had to put like $100, no matter what, you had to take it out of your account. You got to put $100 on who's going to be a star in the next few years. You're not going to put it on Primo? Like, who are you going to put it on?
Joe Wieskamp. Wheezy F baby, and the F is for fuck the tank. We got Joe.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah.
You see that? Audience, he thinks he's cute. That's what he does.
I don't think I know.
That was legitimate.
You know how I know? Because you tell me all the time.
This is true. Facts.
But you know that's true. Like, you would put your money on Josh. Like, who else are you going to put it on?
Well, and I'll say this. I have full confidence. I think my hot take is that this offseason, Primo leapfrogs Devin development-wise. I think Devin's about to hit what he's going to be as a player. We had this thing where we thought he could be a shot creator, and he showcased a little bit of that, but I don't think it's going to be something that sticks. I think he's going to be one of those catch and shoot guys, a two-way guy, which is fine. But I think he's a decent defender. He's not a great defender.
He's like I think I
two-way?
I said it the other day. He's like a
Kelly
baby.
Oubre type defender. He's long. He can hang with some guys. Actually, Oubre might be a better.
I think he's more so of a baby Raja Bell, as in
that would work.
Not an ultra point of attack defender, but a good defender who is also a good team defender who kind of plays within the flow of the offense, who's a good spot up guy, but isn't really going to wow you on either side of the ball and make you feel like, oh my goodness, this guy is.
And that said, Raja Bell did lead the Suns in scoring for like one or two seasons because doing that, so Devin could be great in that role. I think Primo developmentally is going to overtake him very soon if he's progressing at the current rate we've seen him progress.
I think Josh Primo is going to be a better defender, but even Devin Vassell, honestly,
I think so too.
I agree.
The reason why I'm not crazy about Devin Vassell defensively is that he has, and I know this is just his second year or whatnot, but he has some lapses, man. Even if I want to look at him as an on-ball defender, I don't see him as that good of an on-ball defender. Guys get around.
He's a team defender. I even brought this up on OOC. He does not handle changes of direction well. That goes back to his college days. He's not a good transition defender. He's often flat-footed and has trouble turning. That's a big thing on defense is when you're backpedaling and a guy hits you with a move and accelerates, he has trouble turning around and running alongside the guy and tries to shuffle, and he gets lost a lot there. Look at DJ compared to how Devin defends some of these faster guys. DJ's just much better with his footwork and staying with them.
Well, I was Oh, real quick, I was just gonna say when it came to DJ, like I always used to say, like, oh, he's not bad, by any means. I was like, oh, he's not a great on-ball defender. But one thing about DJ is he's a phenomenal play the lanes offense or off ball defender, and I don't see either of those for Devin. So I see guys get around him and catch him on cuts all the time.
Well, I see the flat-footedness when it comes to Devin's defense, specifically because when they teach you defense, they teach you make your chest square with the offensive player. And if they're going in, you're supposed to cut them off and use your chest to cut them off, and use your body to cut them off. When offensive player goes into Devin, he's so slow in turning his body to make that commitment or make that adjustment that often he has to rely on his length and rely on closing out with his length to really get that stop, and usually he fails. And then even team-wise, as a team defender, he's not great as a team defender either, really.
Nope.
And it's funny too, because we brought this guy up earlier, but Matisse Thybulle, it's weird because that's kind of what he does. Thybulle loves to let guys get by him, and then make the play from behind. He's like very unorthodox, but Devin's not quite as, at least I don't know this for sure, but he doesn't seem quite as long as Thybulle, and he doesn't seem to have the timing that Thybulle does on those blocks and pickpockets from behind. Like it's part of Thybulle's strategy to do that. Devin, it's more that he just failed at the initial part of it, and he's playing catch up to do that.
One is a calculated risk. The other one is I physically can't do that, so I kind of have to resort to doing this.
I want to say this defensively. The reason why I think Josh Primo is going to be a better defender, because I think defensively he's like a longer, more talented Derek White on defense, and because he's like really sneaky with it. Like even that game where he put up like 3 steals and 4 blocks on the Suns, it did not, like by the end of the game, no one knew he had 4 blocks in that game. But if you go back and look at the highlights, it's like, oh, that wasn't a block. It's just like really sneaky. It's not like in your face, but he does so many little things where it's like, oh my goodness.
And that I think that mainly points to the fact that he has good knowledge of his body. He knows how to
IQ, man.
Switch speeds when it comes to his physicality. He'll go slow. He'll speed it up. He doesn't overdo either one. Some guys can only ever go one speed. Some guys can only, know how to, mix up a bit. But I think he'll be a guy who, in time, will know how to do that type of variety. I don't know if he'll ever be a top tier point of attack defender. I don't think so. But I think team defense, specifically team defense wise, if you put him next. Josh Primo strikes me as the type of guy. If you put him next to other good defense players, he'll be that much better of a defense.
He'll be great, yeah.
He's a great team guy, and if you put him around good defenders, that's where you'll maximize that guy. Look,
no matter what, he has such a high basketball IQ that he'll be a star in not too long. Like he'll learn, but his IQ is crazy.
I'm hoping we start to see what he's going to be with at least the next 2.5 years. We knew he was going to be a project type guy, but I am encouraged because I see him. He also quickly picks up the Spurs schemes, which is good because
IQ.
Even guys like, dog, you're like that, that rapper, they're like, everybody say sausage, and then they just keep saying one line, and then they end it with sausage. It's just like that, but with IQ.
He's smart, man. IQ, genius.
But he picks up on things a lot faster than and that's where I was a little hopeful with Devin, is the reason he got in there so fast is because he picked up on everything very fast. Keldon kind of struggled to pick things up. Luka Samanic looked lost out there in our system when we tried to put him in there. Lonnie would get lost. Absolutely. Lonnie would get lost, and that's where that Jakob used to get lost all the time in his first and second seasons here. And he's finally kind of learned everything within our system. So it is encouraging how quickly he's picked up how we play and why we do things the way we do on the court. So it's a wait and see situation, but like I said, I'm with you. I got high hopes.
He's gonna be a star. Just give him a couple seasons, he'll be a star.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to perform my Dear Primo rap one time on here, even though I know you already technically did one, but I think mine encapsulated how you felt much more.
Do you need a beat to it?
I'm just gonna use Stan. That's what I wrote it to. It'll get copy struck, but hey, sometimes we need to make sacrifices.
It's worth the risk.
we need to make sacrifices, like trading Derek White for Josh Richardson. But well, hey, y'all got any like last closing topics you wanna talk about, or we want to get on out of here?
That's a good question. Go ahead.
Okay. Real quick, I just want to say, close statement on the team as a whole. It kind of relates back to when we were talking about Primo, actually. Popovich wanted to use him in a win now type of role. And I think that's the direction of the team, regardless of if the fans, me, you guys, if anybody agrees with it. I think that's the mentality as long as Popovich is the coach, is that it is a win now situation. I think if the idea is to rebuild and to take the next 5 to 10 years and really
he'll retire,
you know what I'm saying, roster, then I think that if Pop isn't in that picture, I think that's a more doable thing. But as long as he's in the picture, then the idea is to win as much as you can. And I think our free agency and our draft moves should really reflect those types of things. I think that is what we're going to see this offseason. But
yeah, I completely agree. And like, even if I were to say, oh my God, I want to tear it down, I don't think as a franchise you can ask your Hall of Fame head coach who's all-time in wins to go out and tank. It's just not fair to him. I mean, and Pop is competitive. He's going to want to try to win.
And he's not going to go for it.
No,
that's the bigger thing.
No, as long as he's coach, we are going to be trying to win games. And if they decide that's not their strategy, I think that's when you say, look, we'll bring someone else in here, because why tarnish his record like that at the very end of the season? You know, if we're going to start over, really start over.
I was going to say, I think that's part. I agree with you guys. I think that's part of why the Spurs front office really filled up their arsenal with draft picks for something like this. It seemed like they kind of suspected it, that they were going to try to win and try to get to the playoffs. So they're like, look, let's try to get as much as we can, so we can get a tanking pick without the tank. Yeah. So I think they are going to try to move. I mean, that's me personally. I think they are going to try to move up. And at the end of the day, Pop can try to want to win like all he wants. And I don't fault him for anything. Like, obviously, if players even wanting to come to the Spurs, even these freshmen, or not freshmen, but the draft prospects.
Rookies, yeah.
Even them, like what they're talking about, every single interview is like, oh yeah, Pop, culture, Pop. So they know what they're going to get. They know they're going to get a guy that helps them develop and they become, the best possible player they can become. But at the end of the day, I think that you're going to have to force it where Pop can't like win. like it's nothing you can really do.
You have to deprive him.
Yeah, like you can't win, Pop. Like there's no way you're going to win, because there was so many games that shouldn't even been close during the season that the Spurs managed to make them close. And that was all because of Popovich's coaching. I tell you, bro, anybody else, people can say what they want about Pop, but any other coach with this roster, they wouldn't have gotten a play in. Are you kidding me? Like, look at the Lakers right now. Like, if Popovich had the Los Angeles Lakers, even with Anthony Davis's like on and off getting hurt, if he had the Los Angeles Lakers, they would have been out of a lot of games. What'd you say?
He would have gotten thrown out of a lot of games.
Homemade Texas season is ridiculous. However, they would have at least made the play-in. I believe they would have made that playing game if they had Popovich.
Oh, I do have one point to bring up. Maddie actually brought this up to me the other day, and I was like, he's right. He texted me and he was like, I was critical and all of Brian Wright before this draft deadline. Then I started to see some of his plan. He said, one thing that's like really noticeable, he said, all these interviews, we've seen people mention Pop before, But how many draft interviews do you see where guys go out of the way to name the GM by name in there and talk about like how great it was getting to know him? And all of these 4 interviews we've been confirmed to, their quotes have them talking about how amazing Brian Wright is to work with. We don't see that from a lot of other teams with like the GM's name being dropped. And Maddie was like, that's something. I was like, yeah, that does bode well for us. You know, even if we don't fully know what his plans are, it's pretty cool that like he's having that imprint on these guys the same way Popovich is at such a young stage in his career. So I'm hoping that means we're in good hands.
Oh, Brian Wright is a phenomenal GM, at least from what I've seen thus far. Like, even our roster right now, people can complain and say, oh, you got this player, you got that player. But even if you go back and look at those drafts, which it's very, like, new, so anything can happen. But, like, as it stands right now, we kind of won out. Like, we Keldon Johnson, because wasn't he probably the best player left in that draft? Wait, did he draft Keldon? He didn't draft Keldon. He didn't draft Keldon. I'm sorry.
Grant Williams is there. Brandon Clark was.
He didn't draft Keldon anyway.
I mean, granted, at pick 29, maybe he was the best player left. But like, if we're talking like pick 19, where we first picked, then probably not.
Well, that wasn't Brian Wright's fault.
No, yeah, I mean that's still RC at the helm taking his guy. At 19.
But after that, he's done fine. It's been a few hiccups that was kind of out of his control, and maybe we just got a little too antsy and we just expected that Morris would just play it fair and whatnot. And maybe we did a little too much. But other than that, I mean, I think he's been great.
Well, and that's the game you play. I mean, he came in and tried to get aggressive immediately with Morris in his first season there, and it didn't work, and it bit us, and it bit us bad.
But that's the thing. I've never seen that happen before. Has that happened to other teams where like a player just drops out?
It actually happened with Dominique Wilkins. He got drafted, I think, by the Blazers and refused to sign a contract until they traded him, and they traded him to the Hawks.
What was that, though?
But it does not happen often. No, there's been times players refuse to sign contracts, but that's rare among rare. And I can't fault him for going after Morris because he would have been a great addition to that team. I mean, we're probably looking at another playoff appearance at that point. Yeah, given what DeRozan did. That was like DeRozan's godlike efficiency season. LaMarcus Aldridge was still a 17 to 18 point scorer a game. You add in Morris with that defense and DeJounte in his like coming back season, and Derek White was still healthy at the time. You know, he hadn't had his injuries yet and lost a step. So like, I think that would have been a great move if it had gone through. And like, I won't lie, you know, it handicapped us the next couple of years. There wasn't much we could do. We had full salary cap. We like one pick a draft that wasn't great. But you know, we've managed to turn it around, and we've got assets and money to play with. So I'm happy about that and ready to see what he does.
Go all in, man. I'm with you guys on it. Like, you guys kind of convinced me. Like, why not? Just go all in. But even the other way, I'm cool with that too. I just don't want us to try to. I personally don't want us to try to win anything. I don't think that's necessary. We'll be mediocre too.
I think that's a good place to end it for now. Make sure y'all check out our social medias. Obviously, go subscribe to me on YouTube. I've been editing this video for a long time. It's a 6-minute video. It's taken me a long time to edit. I have 1 minute and 40 seconds left to edit together and re-record a couple parts. So hopefully that comes out this week. And then I got a lot more draft videos to release. Check out Clan at Clan the Primo Fan on YouTube. Impeccabull channel TBD, but go give
I will have something to plug.
Oh, do it! Plug it, man.
No, not yet, but I will have something to plug.
He's gonna have the best. He's gonna have the best channel of all 4 of us once he gets going. I'm calling it now.
Wait, who's saying. Does
Maddie?
Maddie's gonna have a. Maddie's gonna.
I mean, Maddie doesn't have a channel, but he could if he wanted. Maddie's just busy with life, man. Maddie is he's a massage therapist. He's like booked day and night with some of these clients. He's like working with athletes in the Wisconsin area and trying to get down to like Florida or San Antonio. So like Maddie's on the go, man.
That's great.
But anyways, this has been Views from the Rafters. It's been a pleasure talking with you guys, and we'll catch you next time once we've got some more info about the draft and free agency and the playoffs. So we'll see you then.